Junie Welsh.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are many things, but our connection among many things recently has been Christina Hartunian.
Yes.
Shout out to Christina.
Love her.
How did y'all meet?
So at Cumberland Heights, she was working in admissions and I had just transitioned to UR, but I was still an intern in the women's program. And I walked up to admissions to say hi to someone. And I had just gotten back from vacation and I was in Topanga Canyon, California. She's like, oh my God, that's where I grew up.
Okay.
And I was like, shut up. And then we became friends.
That's how y'all hit it off.
Yeah.
We really appreciate and love her and her time with us. And to be honest, we really miss her, but happy with her and like where she is.
Yeah, I'm
in
sure
her
there
journey.
is a big absence.
I mean, there is.
Yeah.
She was, her and Ryan here were the producers of the show for a year. So,
Wow.
Built it into what it is. So, well, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course.
If you don't mind, for those that don't know you, just introduce yourself in the best way that you see fit.
Okay. I'm Junie. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Okay.
That's who I am today.
Yep.
Here
Yep.
at Cumberland Heights.
How long have you been clean and sober?
10 years, a little over 10 years.
Shout out to you. Congratulations.
And it all started here.
Did it?
Yeah.
See, you mentioned that earlier. I did not know that. Tell me about that.
Well, good. You haven't been scrubbing tier to find me. Or like, was it paper files? I don't know.
Sure. No, we were still
Reading my
tier.
BPS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. How'd you end up at Cumberland Heights?
Okay, so it's kind of a wild story. I am not the only one from my family that's come here. I got my first DUI when I was 19, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a student at Swanee. I was home for the summer.
Oh.
I did summer school every year because I loved it. But I was home. My grandmother had just passed away. And I was, soothing in the only way I knew how.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 years later, I got another DUI in Chattanooga. And that DUI, I ran into a granite bench outside the AT&T building. They had to cut me out of the car.
Holy smokes, Junie.
Yes. Mercedes station wagon saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went to the hospital and then jail. Broken ribs. I can't even lift my body off the ground. I come to, my face is on the grate of a drain in a holding cell before they messed up my bond and sent me to a penitentiary.
Wow.
For about a week. And when I finally got my phone call at some point within those 24 hours, I called my mom. And I was like, this is where I am. What do we do? And she said, Junie, I just really feel like this is a drug and alcohol problem because today's March 1st, the day that one of her siblings died 20 years before of an overdose. That went to Cumberland Heights. And that is how I got here. About 2 weeks after that, I got in here.
That call obviously is a big part of your story. Was it that moment that you had started first reflecting that maybe you had a problem with alcohol or drugs?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, Mom. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but
So
then
it
they
was
put an
only
ankle
later.
monitor on me. It's a condition of my bond. It read my sweat for alcohol.
Right.
So I couldn't drink, which wasn't my favorite thing anyways.
Right.
So I was like, alcohol's a problem.
Right.
I don't like it anyways.
Right, of course.
Dad's
who
an
needs
alcoholic.
that?
I should stop anyways.
Right,
you know?
right.
But then it became really apparent that I could not function. I was at home. It was during spring break of school. And so I couldn't get out of bed. And
What were you using, if you don't mind me asking?
so I was prescribed quite the cocktail that I used a lot of. Adderall, Vyvanse together, Klonopin, Xanax.
Up and then down. I mean, you got to be able to take care of the down, right?
Yeah, okay, this is actually really insane.
I know I'm making light of it, but
No, but do you want to hear the actual dosage? Because it's
sure, if you don't mind sharing.
Very interesting. I was prescribed 70 milligrams of Vyvanse first thing in the morning, plus an instant 30 milligram release of Adderall with a Klonopin.
That's a lot. With a Klonopin.
Yeah, and a depression med. Then at lunch, another 30 instant and another Klonopin. And then at night, another Klonopin. So that's what I was prescribed.
That's, yeah. I mean, when
Yeah.
you say quite the cocktail, like that's,
Yeah.
and in hindsight, does it scare you that, I mean, not to like, but like that an emerging adult like yourself
Oh, yeah.
could even be prescribed?
I didn't
that,
have the words as a 17, 18-year-old to say what was going on.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of mental health education. I had a little bit. My first psych class was at Harpeth Hall, which was cool, and definitely got me interested, which we can talk more about later. But no, I did not know I had anxiety. And I had my first panic attack when I got to college. When I got to Swanee, I was at pre-orientation, and I had a big panic attack. I didn't know what it was. I called my dad because I guess I intuitively knew that he also had anxiety. And he drove up that mountain, and he gave me a couple blue pills. He said, never take a whole one, but they make stuff for people like us. And so my dad got me on Xanax when I was 18. And then a couple months later, I saw a prescriber and was officially prescribed it. But I was chewing those things before I even knew what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's changed? Do you think our relationship, like kind of just a bit, I want to touch on this for a moment, and I know we'll get into this in terms of you as a professional today, but do you think culturally our relationship, especially with adolescents, or emerging adults and medications and mental health, is that changing for the positive?
Yes. I mean, but not fast enough. And we still have providers that are older and not down with new research, and they have less gray matter in their brain, so they're literally less flexible. They cannot take in new information. I'm at a very old prescriber that got me started on all that. So I really, really like to suggest that my patients see nurse practitioners. And I have a handful of young ones that I like to refer to.
And why is that?
Because they have their finger on the pulse of what's new and what's effective. And they don't view it as a moral failing or behavioral issue. If you come out of med school or any other professional school that's in healthcare today and you still don't understand it's a disease, like you must have been sleeping,
Yeah. Do you think that, how else do you think that our relationship culturally to mental health is changing? And another question I have for you is, if you could do anything for everybody, for kids, adolescents, emerging adults, in terms of helping them learn more, unpack more of their own, like you, not knowing that you had anxiety, what would you suggest to people?
I really wish, and I'm sure schools have already started doing this, but there needs to be a feelings class, because I didn't have the words to know what I was feeling. And many of my adult clients sit with me today, and I'm like, all right, there's a feelings wheel on the wall, because they're like, I don't know, I just don't feel good. And once we can identify what we're feeling, then it's like, all right, we can get down to business here. But I had no understanding of tightness in the chest, feeling lightheaded, that it wasn't, physiological symptoms. Also, there's a feeling behind it. And I didn't know that.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Just your perspective on that, you being a provider and, something, I'm a therapist and I'm a person in recovery as well. And if that very simple suggestion would probably provide a lot of utility for a lot of young people just trying to determine
probably,
am I afraid?
It's not going to stop addiction, but
Sure.
at all.
Yeah.
But, and to add to that, those first providers I saw as a teen, no one asked what my home life was like or how was that going.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
What's your dad like? Do they get along? Your parents?
Or what do you have going on in your life?
Yeah.
Do you have a friend group? Is that
home life
productive?
specifically, because that's where it all starts. And so much of what was happening to me was I could not articulate it. I did not know it was abuse. If you had asked me as a 17-year-old, are you being abused? I would have been like, no, go away, but it was abuse.
Interesting. Yeah, I think education about trauma and abuse too, is really important for folks. It's not what, it's how. It's not what happens, it's how it affects you. And, I didn't learn that until I was 28, which is, I'm still pretty young, but I was in graduate school, like to think about our relationship.
So we talked about your age earlier. That means you're emotionally 7 now.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you for holding me accountable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Second grade over here.
And that was after, that would have been like 8 years into recovery.
Yeah.
Which developmentally, like, we don't need to unpack, but like sometimes you just need to like start your journey with
you have to start
recovery.
somewhere.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't, just for anybody out there that's an Enneagram 1, like you can't do this.
Is that what you are?
Yeah. You
Details.
can't do it perfectly. You know? Details, yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, I appreciate you sharing all that and being vulnerable.
Of course.
So, to back up a little bit, or to fast forward, if you will, you have these experiences at Swanee, you meet that granite bench, you go into jail, and then you said 2 weeks later you're going into treatment. How did you get to treatment here?
So before, I was definitely using, but before it was very clear to my mom, she had tried to get my dad to check in here and had gone through, I believe he went through the admissions process and would refuse to admit, or at least started the process. And Cumberland Heights said, hey, to my mom, they're like, hey, you can do the family program for free, even though he didn't admit. Like, you deserve to have that.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. That's why I got sober.
Really?
Yeah. Because my mom had some hard boundaries the second I got out of jail that she would not have come up with without that education,
Shout out to mom.
Shout out to mom. I was really forced into it. I could have gone out on my own. I don't know with what car, but I could have gone and lived on the streets, but I wasn't going to do that.
So tell me what she said to you.
Well, first of all, this is actually really funny.
Okay.
I look back at it and I'm like, oh my God. I said, isn't there some like depression camp that I could go to?
Yeah.
For depressed, adolescents.
Right, because that's the issue. Yeah.
Except for I was like 21 at the time. Like, or 22. Can I just like go on a farm somewhere and talk about this?
Right. Right.
I did come to a farm, but not a depression camp.
Yeah, right.
I just didn't have the language. I didn't know.
Right.
But
right.
I was like, all right, fine. Fine. And she said, also, this is actually what got me. It'll look really good for your court case. And I was like, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? If it works, it works. Like there's no, I came to treatment because of law enforcement as well.
Yeah. Fuck them, but also.
Yeah, very helpful.
Why I'm here.
Saved my life. When you think about it, Junie, like if you didn't have that experience with the granite bench.
I know.
Have you been back to it?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you come here to Cumberland Heights, you check in begrudgingly, but knowing it'll be good for your court case. And then what was that experience? Well, how long were you with us?
I was only here for 2 weeks. And
interesting.
I really minimized my use. Okay. So I,
good for you. Yeah.
As we do. And the girl that did my utilization review, I know today. And she was fighting hard based on observable behaviors, not self-reported stuff. So I got 2 weeks, which is huge for someone that only smokes pot a few times a week, maybe.
So so unpack that a little bit, maybe for a parent or for somebody who's unaware of how utilization review works in an in-network treatment facility. Like, I just think it's an interesting seg, because it's not like, why?
So I used to work in UR here. We have to argue for why the patient needs to be here and what set of symptoms meets criteria their entire stay. The whole time, we have to continue to argue with why they should be here.
Right, based on the particular plan, policy, what's included, what's not included.
And then data from medical, as well as observable, as well as therapeutic and family history. Like, it all plays a role.
And each plan and payer, insurance company, has somewhat different,
no one's the same.
Right,
they all
standards
have
or communication cadences that you are responsible for. Continue.
Yeah. Are you in UR?
No,
okay.
No. I just.
I'm kidding. So it's all different. I won't name them out, but some are easier than others, and some have a better, take on what behavioral healthcare looks like and what addiction actually requires, and I mean, thank God for those insurances. I had one of them, which is why I got 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the whole time I was here, I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm not an alcoholic or an addict, but I'll listen. And I remember there was this woman, I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but she was driving me somewhere on the golf cart. And she, probably for meds or whatever, which, by the way, I refused detox meds. Wow. Had to sign a consent form stating that I understood I could have a seizure or a stroke or a heart attack or whatever for the benzos. And I was like, oh, but I'm not an addict, so I'm going to be fine.
Wow, Junie.
Crazy. Yeah. So it was Phyllis. Her name was Phyllis. She was wonderful. She was taking me on the golf cart somewhere, and she was like, so yeah, as an alcoholic, like blah, blah, blah. She was talking about herself, I would assume. And I was like, oh, I'm not one. And she just said, well, what are you doing here? And I remember being like, my mom made me, but it hit a nerve.
Differently.
It hit different. And then,
Yes.
yes.
I love that. You know what I mean?
Phyllis.
Like, it's just a little like, wait a minute. Little pieces of insight.
Yeah. So then the continuing care plan was for me to be in sober living. And I was like, cool. If I have to do that, I'll find the most expensive one. Not that one. I heard that's a cult, so we'll do this one. Mom, if you're going to make me do it, it's going to hurt, which is so horrible.
Right.
Have since made amends.
Right.
But I landed at a really good place. 2 Harpeth Hall girls ran it. They welcomed me at the front door, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. I'm scared. I miss my dog. I wish I was at home, but I don't know how to live with all of the new restrictions, given that I had an ankle monitor, I had to drop out of school, I don't have a car. Like, what am I even going to do?
Right.
And that night, I realized I was an alcoholic.
Really?
And an addict, yeah.
Ooh, you got to tell me how. What happened?
I don't really remember. It was a meeting that the house had every week, like every Wednesday or Thursday. And different women in the community would come and share. And I was just like, oh, shit. I think I am one.
Why?
I don't know. It just finally sunk in. And what really helped me articulate it was my first step. So there was a woman at the meeting that night that was terrifying, smoked cigarettes, beautiful, in her 50s. And I was like, you're going to be my sponsor because I'm terrified of you. That's how it works.
Sure.
And I was at 5925, actually. And someone was talking about, I have the gene. Of course I'm an addict or alcoholic. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm powerless over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I cannot control my DNA. And as someone who felt like they were strong and powerful, surely I could withhold if I needed to. I don't even need detox meds, I'm very stubborn. Surely I can will my way out of this. But that one, I can't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It seems to be really, can I ask you a personal question?
Has this not all been personal?
Yeah, right. We'll cut it if it's...
Okay.
You, putting all those examples together, choosing the perceived hard sponsor, choosing, being, in treatment, I'm not going to tell that full truth, refusing detox meds. And the gene comment you made, how that hit you differently. It seems to me that you have an interesting relationship with shame.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So if I'm an alcoholic and an addict, then I'm my dad. And I don't want to be him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't make me cry.
Okay.
Thank you for saying that.
Don't make me cry.
Well, sorry. I just that has so much meaning.
I just spilled water all over me.
It's just par for the course. It's just in the moment.
just
It's totally
getting messy.
fine. It's fine.
Do I look okay?
You know what? Messy is real.
It is real.
And that's a lot of what this journey is for a lot of people. So I appreciate you saying that. I wasn't like fishing for some moment, when I thought about you and your story, it's like there was a reason why those things were so kind of a barrier for you. And thank God, you had that moment where you're like, oh, you know what? Biology, I can't manage that.
Yeah.
And that's going to help me take the next step. I think that's what sometimes people don't understand about recovery, the recovery phenomena. Mm-hmm. You don't have to make some commitment of buying into some lifelong, strenuous, like these words that come up in my mind, even commitment. It's just like, how can we take the next right step to be healthy, whole, and happy? That's it.
Breaking it down bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is within my first month at that sober living, having people talking about their experiences in recovery, because there were a lot of women that would come and support that house. It was really cool. And I had another moment where I was like, this is when I was fully bought in. All I have to do is this program of recovery and I can get everything I want out of life. I just have to do this. And I tell my clients that all the time, like, you don't have to worry about the rest. Just do this.
Right.
This is everything.
Right. Right. Thank God for that community.
I know.
So how long were you there?
Okay, so it was a total of 6 months. And during my stay, it became apparent that I had something more than just addiction. I had PTSD. And so I went to a treatment center for 45 days for that.
Did you? Do you mind asking where you went?
I went to La Paloma.
Okay, yeah.
Became the Oaks.
How did you discover that?
So
not La Paloma, but like PTSD.
Yeah, so I was not responding the same way to the world. I was a raw nerve. Like, we had to take the bus everywhere in Nashville, which is humbling and difficult. So I did that for 6 months. Took the bus everywhere and to work.
Good for you.
Yes. And, we'd hit a bump in the road and I'm like, frozen. And, I was just responding differently to the world.
And did you have people around you that were able to be like, there had to be some mechanism for you to become aware of like, oh, maybe this is something different.
Yeah. So I was in IOP at Foundations, the one that used to be downtown in that really old pretty house. And they were like, oh, yeah, there's something else going on here. And Perfect. Another problem. So they got me right into La Paloma.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. How did that change your recovery?
Well, it took the fault out of it, because I was responding to something when I was using. Like that was a soothing tool. And I'd be dead if I didn't have it,
It took what it took.
It took what it took. Yeah.
So what happens next in Junie's story? Because shout out to you. I don't know if you've already said this, but 10 years of recovery. So that sounds like getting close to 9 months of a story. But how do we go from that young woman who discovers she has an addiction, discovers she has PTSD, discovers the power of community, which is like so much change, like already. Like I'm like nervous.
I'm
like,
the only thing I have to change is everything. Great.
Right, just wait. That's a lot. And then today is a mental health professional with a good amount of experience. So what happened next? What was between that and...
I needed like 2 or 3 years of like balls deep, head first into AA.
Yeah,
that's what I need. Like, I don't do anything with anyone else. Like my first concert sober was Widespread Panic with an ankle monitor, which is very appropriate for that scene.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense.
And no offense to Panic fans, but
they'll be like, no, we understand.
We get it. And so I needed like 3 years of that. And then I resumed my senior year of college.
Good for you.
So and then I started integrating my old friends that were still there for me after all of that. I folded them back into my life.
So So how much recovery did you have when you went back to school?
2.5 years sober, 3.
So you're living in Nashville, transitioned out of a halfway house. I'm sure you have like a job or 2 or 3 or whatever. You're going to meetings, and like you said, you're just like super involved in recovery.
Yeah, had a service commitment. Do you remember the meeting prime time?
Yeah.
That I had to set it up every Monday, and that took a lot of time. But that took a lot of time.
It's a commitment.
It was a commitment.
Yeah.
But it really got me in a community,
yeah.
like outside of sober living,
Yeah.
making it and participating without being forced to is hard. There's a big like dip for people. That's where we see people disconnect is I've been in all these services and then I'm on my own and I cannot self-direct.
So what would you say to a family or an individual or whoever that's coming out of treatment just about that topic? Like if you're their case manager, they're leaving treatment, what's the most important 3 things that they do in those coming months after treatment?
They have to stay in the middle of the boat. So I work primarily with people in their 20s and 30s. And like, you have to go to sober living. You don't have to, but come on. It'll show you how to do your whole day and do it in recovery. And then therapist, if you need a med provider, sponsor, you have to have your group of people that you make. Those friends you make is so important.
How do you do that?
Okay, well, I feel like Stillwaters is the answer to that for young men, for sure. I love that. It definitely felt harder as a female. But Patrick Custer, who you had on the podcast, he was one of the people that invited me every Monday night to get Mexican food with him after the primetime meeting. And it was like, okay, so now I'm hanging out with these people. And it would be weird if I didn't see them on Mondays. And then what are they doing on Thursday? And then, it becomes your life. That's how you build a life.
I'm really glad you said the restaurant piece before a meeting.
Yeah.
Because it's critical.
It is.
It's a different meeting experience for me with 14 years of recovery. Like, certainly there are times when I'm like, I just need to get to a meeting and my time is limited, so I'm going to show up when it starts and I'm going to leave when it ends.
Well, as we know very well as former alcoholics and addicts, well, we still are, but former users,
right?
Is that the real party starts at the after party.
Sure. Sure.
Like, I go to the party, but I'm here to like do drugs till 3 a.m.
But gosh, that connection though, just like a little bit more to like chips and salsa plus the queso,
it's
maybe
the after
guacamole.
Party.
Like, it's just a totally different community building experience than checking in and checking out. And that's one of the dangers, I think, of some people like, well, I'm going to meetings. Right.
But if you don't feel connected,
right,
then it's for nothing.
And it's really difficult to do that. Okay, let me shift back to school.
Yeah.
Because a really interesting question. You're maybe 22 when you're going back to school?
I was, I got sober at 22, turned 23 at La Paloma. So maybe 25, 26.
Okay.
So I was a non-traditional student by that point.
Well, welcome to the club. Like, it's a good party. I'm curious if you struggled with your sense of identity being a non-traditional student and being clean and sober going back to school. And what was that like?
So I went to TSU and it was a really cool experience. All I had left to finish really was like a year's worth of school if I had stayed at Swanee, maybe a little more, but not everything transferred. So I did about 2 years worth of school in 18 months. Maybe it was 2.5 worth in 18 months. So I did like Maymester, everything.
Right.
All the additional options I did. And I had an advisor, Professor De Lamoth. I'll never forget her name because at the time I was still kind of fluent in French and she was French Canadian. So we connected on that level. But I was really convinced I was stupid. I came from a very high achieving world and I did great until I picked up alcohol and drugs. And when my mental health was really, starting to spike. But yes, that was the obvious and clear connection, but I still was really concerned that maybe I was stupid. I'm like, I just can't do school. Like I've got street smarts, but I can't do that. And so I took my first class, I took one class, I took English 101. I was really selling myself short at that point. And I was like, okay, next semester I will take 2. And my advisor was like, all right, so can we get your mom in here? Like, we're going to have a team meeting. And I was like,
You're like,
okay.
oh, great.
Yeah. And I'm like, why? But okay. And she's like, so you're taking 6 classes plus a lab.
That's a lot. Can
a
we
lot.
just like,
It's a lot.
by
She was
my
like-
math, that's 18 hours.
Right. So
That's-
we're going. We're doing this.
Yeah, that is, you're right. That's a full send.
Yes. And I was like, okay, but what if I can't do it? And she was like, we're not going to talk about that. And she pushed me back into that. And being at TSU, I really started to feel like, okay, yeah, no, I am smart. You know, I have learned something all these years. I didn't ruin my brain. I can apply myself. I can do time management. I can prioritize things, you know. Those were all things that if you had asked me as a senior in high school, I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then I lost all that. So, and then I went straight into grad school after that.
So did you notice something different about you after that first semester of 18 months? I mean, did you do well?
Oh yeah, I had like a 3.9 or something.
And how did that I just imagine that experience to be like, wait, what? Like I can...
Yeah, like, am I a nerd? But like, okay.
Yeah, and
it.
also just like proving to yourself, which is just building a positive sense of character and kind of beginning to create some momentum in terms of where you want to go.
Yeah, there's kind of no stopping. And it's the same in recovery. Like you don't stop and take a break and kind of do nothing until you decide where you're going to sober living. Like it doesn't work. I had to ride the momentum because it was the next right thing, which we have to do over and over again.
So how did you get into psychology?
So I have a family member with schizophrenia, and it was untreated for a really long time. And at family gatherings, you know, they would be talking to themselves and clearly distraught, and I would go outside and sit with them and talk to them while they were smoking a cigarette. And I really thought initially I wanted to work with psychotic illnesses, which I still do some of today, but that's what pulled on the heartstring and got me
empathy. Yeah.
Because, you know, this family member, their delusions were all around the family being hurt by people that didn't exist. And it was out of the kindness of his heart that he was in under so much duress, you know? And it was just very clear that it was not something he could control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when you went back and you went to TSU, what was your major?
I continued with psych, dropped the French minor. I was like, what's that good for? Nothing.
The Olympics.
Right. Okay, yeah.
But I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
And I just wanted to be done. So.
Did you know that you wanted to be a therapist?
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. Did you start at Swanee thinking that you were going to be a therapist?
I don't know what I thought, if I'm being honest. I get it. I couldn't see that far in the future because I kind of didn't know if I was going to be alive that far in the future.
Right.
You know, it's like, what am I planning for? I don't even know.
But you get to TSU and you're like, I want to be a therapist. Is that your vision? Mm-hmm. Like in private practice?
No, I don't know. Just a therapist.
So where'd that idea come from?
Well,
like in that 2.5-year period of recovery, you're like, this is where I want to go.
If people are going to call me with all their problems, I might as well get paid for it. That's really where it started.
Sure.
No, but I knew that it's something you either have or you don't, and that whatever it was, I had it.
Yeah.
Because I know I was a safe person for a lot of people, and that felt really good, given that I was not a safe person for a long time.
So where'd you go to graduate school?
I went to Trevecca here in Nashville and did the LPC track, so clinical mental health. It was really important that I could treat more than just, you know, family systems stuff. Like I wanted to know and be able to do high acuity stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you love the program?
Yeah. I mean, it did what it needed to do for me.
Right.
And I did it all while working here. Which was cool. Yeah.
Tell me about where all you worked here at Cumberland.
Started in admissions, was there for 2 years, and
I didn't realize you were there for 2 years. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was a little shorter then.
What
but
did
no, I think it
admissions
was 2
teach
years.
you?
Okay, so I already knew I was good at this, but I understood that I could do it clinically too. Like thinking on my feet, fast action, quick response, not absorbing the distress of someone else, like being the calm, like you can borrow my nervous system for a minute while we get you through this. And, I mean, no one should have to go through any kind of trauma so that they can be able to tolerate that kind of stuff later. But I know how to handle someone who's, intoxicated and mad. So, yeah, and doesn't want to be here, So, which is, I mean, why would anyone want to be here in the beginning? No one walks in the door like, thank God I'm here.
Yeah. Living clean is an addict living in an abnormal state.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
It's just important to remember, like, we're people who gravitate towards changing the way that we feel, and it's natural to want to do that as a human being. Like, no shame, no stigma. Like, of course, we want to change the way we feel. So, anyways, setting that aside, admissions is I have so much respect.
Oh, it's front lines, for sure.
It is absolutely frontline, because not only are you triaging the circumstance or the family in front of you, you're trying to determine how to match them with the resources that best suit their needs and their circumstance.
And then during a pandemic, it was like, whoa.
Oh, wow. Well, so what were those dates?
I started in July of 2019.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of change going on in general
A lot.
around that time too.
And I had to learn that if you work in this field, it is not your 12th step.
Ooh.
Like, this is not my service to others. This is a job.
Right.
And I might have fulfillment here.
Right.
But it's not my 12th step.
Right.
And if I'm getting,
How'd you learn that?
like in the mud with people and I'm giving them what I would a sponsee, like, nope, that's not it.
Oh.
Like, it's clinical.
Right.
Which has prepared me for where I am today. I offer some more intensive services for people that are in sober living, like a package, which we can talk more about.
I would love to, yeah.
Yeah. Like, the ideal client is someone fresh out of still waters, or a place like that. But I'm on call for these families. And of course there are limits and boundaries, but I can get that call of, I'm concerned, I don't know what's going on, from a parent, and it not rock me. I mean, of course, sometimes it does, but I know that it's a different hat that I'm wearing when I get a text like that or a call like that.
Such an important lesson.
Yeah.
That many of us, no matter your recovery status, I'll say too, experience if you're working in frontline kind of behavioral health treatment services or
Do you see
medical.
how careful I'm being not to spill on myself?
Oh, I thought it was just a noise thing, but no, you did it perfectly.
Oh, no, I'm just trying not to be messy again.
And gosh, some of the long-term employees, Robin, Paige, that have been in that call center for a long time. I mean, they answer the phone a lot every day.
It takes a toll on you.
It does. It's an incredible balance that you, and so too is being a therapist or a case manager in a treatment center in particular, because you don't, I mean, private practice is challenging in its own way, but gosh, managing a caseload and individual sessions and group sessions.
Oh, no, I was like, this is so easy. I love this job. No,
really?
Not here, to be in private practice.
Oh, yeah,
and in that setting,
yeah.
It was like, oh, I get paid to just do this? Like, what? But that's because I'd been dropped in the deep end here, you know?
Yeah.
So
you do admissions, and then you transition to utilization review? Mm-hmm. And you did that for 2 years too? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also was an intern in the women's program during that time. So I was interning in grad school full-time and working full-time.
That's a lot.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
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 So,
especially through the pandemic. I mean, there was a lot of challenges with providing quality care.
Well, and the community aspect, like I
know.
I wasn't inside with my mom without us both wearing masks for like a year, because I know I'm here where people are coming in a place where they are not able to be thinking about germs, you know?
Right.
Like, that's least on the list of worries.
Right.
And so it was like, oh my God. I mean, before we knew more, it was like, I don't want to be the reason I kill my mom, you know, just because of my job. It was scary.
Dude, it was wild.
I started making a list of, it was like my 2020 trauma list, because I was like, I know I'm going to forget this. And it was just bullet points in my phone of intense things that happened. Because I was like, I know I'm going to be with my therapist one day, and she's going to be like, yeah, but wasn't that year really hard for you? And I'll be like, I don't know, I don't really remember. And now I will remember, you know.
It was hard.
It was hard.
It was hard. Yeah. There were some unintended positive consequences, you know. So we won't get into that. But for the most part, it was super challenging in a residential center. And then just like, I mean, everybody was so burned out by it. I mean,
well, there was no way not to be. I mean,
right.
I remember
in hindsight,
one of my
we were so
advisors
worried.
In grad school was like, so what is one thing that you can put down so that you don't have as much stress in your life? And I was like, okay, here's the list. You tell me which one I stop. You tell me which one I stop. You know?
Thanks for sharing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like okay, I'll take a bubble bath. Like, the world's on fire.
No, I know what you're talking about, though. Like, what's something you can do for you? It's like, just stop. You know what I will do for me? I'm going to order a pizza and watch a television show by myself. You know, that's
right. I'm going to actually, you know, I'm going to watch a really intense TV show because I don't even know how to calm down.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's real.
And it's going to be like a family crime drama. And I'm going to be grinding my teeth tonight.
But at least I will have somehow coped with what's been happening on the outside world and forgotten just briefly for a moment.
For a minute, yeah.
Of all this pressure that's swirling around in the world.
I lived in a studio apartment at the time, too. I was in 350 square feet. It was cool. I made it look really cool with my dog. And so I'm like coming home to my closet, you know, to just chill out.
Wild.
And I started designing it during COVID. And I realized a year into it, I was like, I made this apartment all white. It is literally a padded cell. It is so calm and clinical in here that it's a little weird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I bought a painting from Scott Glazier that was like full of color. And then I was like, all right, we got to make this shit look less like.
Shout out to Scott.
Like an isolation cell.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you do UR and then you leave and do you hang your shingle and become a private practice clinician?
No, can't fully do that until you're fully licensed. I got my LADAC while I was here with Tammy, went into practice with her, and then Melissa. And recently this summer, end of May, I switched to Psychobabble with Ariel Lowe.
Oh, congratulations.
Which I love. Yeah, I'm in Germantown in a really cool building, and she and I worked together here when I was an intern. So
very
it's cool.
Yeah. Do you have a full caseload? Where are you at?
No. Call me. No, yeah. I not right now. I've had summer's a drought, but I've had a few people that have, moved back home.
So tell us what kind of therapy you do.
Okay, so I don't just do addiction, but that is the bulk of my caseload right now. I love working with people that have been sober for some time already, and they're like, oh shit, I have trauma. Or like, I'm not okay. AA isn't enough anymore. I love working with that clientele, that population. And then I do love working with the fresh out of treatment people. My caseload used to be majority female. It's starting to switch, which is cool. I like that too.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your website?
JunieWelshCounseling.com.
Okay, good. I just wanted you to say it.
And then
great website.
Psychobabble Therapy for the group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you have a book. So I noticed a few things when I went on your website earlier today. First of all, social media is on point.
Thank you so much.
And I think we can talk about the mechanism of that as related to your practice and your business, but also you have created this book.
Yes. Okay, so it hit me while I was on a hot girl walk last September. And I was like, I need to write a prompted journal for inner child work because I can't just prescribe ACA, adult children of alcoholics, to everyone. They're not going to do it. I mean, it's a tall order, you know, you've got to start somewhere.
So you need this bridge.
Yes. And a way to, you know, because the first time you hear an inner child, you're like, oh my God, what is that? And then not everyone, but most people don't like their inner child. They're disgusted, or they just don't even want to talk about it. Ashamed, yeah.
Embarrassed. Truly. You know?
Yeah.
So how does this help?
So.
Like, present it to me like I'm your client.
Okay. Do you need this copy? I can give it to you.
Maybe.
Okay.
I was hoping.
Yeah. So.
I love inner child work too. Like, I've like really come to a place where I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like,
I'm so glad.
Should I build a Lego set? What should we do? You know?
Right. I ordered a Polly Pocket on Amazon like 2 years ago because I was like, I got it. She needs it. Little Junie needs it.
Listen, whatever people need to help them grow and become healthier, happier versions of themselves, like I'm a fan for. Like, I just grew up in so much pressure.
Oh my God, yeah.
I feel the pressure in your experience too. You know what I mean? Like, just that we have to figure everything out.
The bubble I came from was very like, you will be doing great things.
Right.
And it starts by doing everything perfectly. You know, it's not like that was intentionally the message.
Of course.
But that is what you internalize.
Right.
And
we have to learn how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So it's called Me and Little Me.
Great.
Journal prompts for the inner child. The first page is where you put your name. Here's to saving your damn self.
Cool.
Which is cool because some of it you have to do yourself, you know? Mm-hmm. And then paste a picture of little you here.
Oh, wow. This is like an intervention.
And then here, I'll let you look at it. The intro, I talk about my own history with journaling. Of course, I did it a lot as a kid and like in middle school. And then when I got to high school, it stopped. I went silent. And then, you know, every therapist is going to tell you to do it. And I could not do it. I don't know. I mean, and I got a moon phase journal where it's the same prompt it's 4 prompts every month, same one. And I did that for a year because I was like, only once a week. Okay, I can do that. You know, and I don't really have to write much of anything if I can't come up with it. And so then I was like, all right, if you do this once a week, it can be life-changing. So there's 52 prompts, so you can do it once a week. You can do it at any pace, but it is built that way.
Can I read a few?
Yeah.
Unnumbered pages too. I like that. Mm-hmm. You know, like sometimes things like that have a tendency to build for the sake of building and not for the sake of growth.
Right.
I had experience with that with like a meditation counter where it like came about like I need to keep this going instead of just
you get
like
too goal-oriented in it.
It wasn't meditative.
Yeah.
It was like the opposite of what was supposed to happen, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, no, I have to do it. Anyways. This is a random prompt. What do you need to be happy, content, and at peace? Are these feelings you have ever felt? What are your earliest memories of feeling happy, content, or at peace? What would daily life look like if you felt like this regularly? What can you do to foster a feeling of happiness, contentment, and peace? Also, shout out to the grid lines on here. I noticed that touch. Good job.
Thank you.
That's a really good self-reflective, because I got to tell you, in my early recovery, I don't know if I knew what that was like.
I remember the first time I experienced the absence of anxiety. I was in that sober living house. I'd gossiped about some girl. We had a house meeting about it. I had to come clean. And I felt so much shame. I cried. And everyone was like, it's fine. Like, you're fine. We all do it. We're all fucked up here, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, wow, I feel so calm. No one's mad at me. You know, I'm completely safe. And that's better than Xanax. Mm. You know, Xanax can't hold a flame to that. Mm-mm. And so it was like, all right, whatever I have to do to make this feeling last longer, I will do. Because we're driven that way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So where can you get this book?
Amazon. Yes.
Very cool.
Easier if you type in my name, Junie Welsh.
Very cool.
And it's linked on my Instagram.
That's cool. Good for you.
Yeah.
You had this idea on a walk in September and you made it real.
I wrote it in 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah. I cranked that out. It was just
You are
it
an
was coming-
achiever.
Yeah,
You know what I
thank
mean?
you.
We have that in common. Like you have once you set your sights on something, you're gonna
Make it
you're
happen.
gonna tackle it.
Well, real, recognize real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Okay, do we like the same music?
I don't know. What kind of music do you? I kind of like everything. In fact, I've been in Nashville again for 6 years, and it's since I've been back in Nashville, like in my 30s, where I've become kind of a country music fan.
No. Okay.
But I think it's because I've unlocked like this other place. Like I'm being like,
I mean, I get it. Like
You know-
Charlie Crockett, I can get down with. you
yeah,
know?
like let's calm down. Like I'm not trying to
Right.
like, you know what I mean? But
Right, not bro country.
no.
No.
And in fact, I'm like vehemently opposed to like,
Exactly.
like relax. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
old school,
Yes.
like sad country.
Yeah.
Like I like that's what I
Like
want.
I came home from work, I kicked my dog, I beat my
Right,
wife, and I
right.
had, a pint of Jack Daniels.
Right. Well, right. Just like
It's great.
or like a relationship ended and like kind of like bluesy country,
Okay, yeah.
to be frank.
Okay,
you
I
know?
love blues.
I love me some Marcus King,
Okay,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's a time traveler for sure. Like he's
Yeah.
from a different era,
Yeah.
even though he's like 25.
So, yeah, none of what that whole domain, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's more like, there are just times that I'm like, you know what? Like it's time for a good cry. Like let's really get music takes me to a place.
No, it does. Yeah.
So I grew up, in the Southeast, and I grew up listening to
I haven't even asked about you. Am I supposed to do that?
No, not at all. That's like preferred.
Okay.
No, this is about you. But, I grew up listening to bands like Widespread Panic and Fish and even like for a little while there, like STS9, like that whole domain.
We all had a moment
Pretty Lights.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're similarly aged, but, yeah, that's just shifted for me in some ways. So, I don't know where I was going with that, except just to say like, the Allman Brothers is a band that I love.
Hell yeah.
I mean, like just to me,
The
it's
reason
just
I
good
ask
music.
is because the first time I met you, I was thinking about this on the way over here. It was in admissions. You walked in and you were pointing at my water bottle because I had the dancing bears on it.
Oh,
And you're like,
Grateful Dead.
You listen to that? I was
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I listen to that. You
Yeah.
listen to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Grateful Dead, sometimes. So, like, do you know of a band called Humphreys McGee?
Yes.
So that is more of like, will take me to a really.
Okay, but you as an Enneagram 1, of course you would like Humphreys because it is methodical. It is robotic almost.
interesting.
They never miss a beat. There aren't two drummers trying to, it's,
Oh, that's interesting.
You know?
You're teaching me something. Because you know
Yeah.
who I really don't like? Like, I'll go to a show to be with friends. Fish.
yeah, that's way too
Don't
messy for you.
Don't sing me a lullaby. Like, if we're going to go somewhere, let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that
I've
really
never put this
tracks.
together. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, I really like
Thank you,
using
therapist
music in
Junie.
therapy.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to do is I do EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to do safe, calm place, figuring out what it is. And then is there a song that you remember as a kid or as like a young adult that you were like, yeah, I feel safe listening to this. Like, this is, I felt happy when I was listening to this song, right? Everyone can think of one. Like for whatever reason, String Cheese, Carnival 99, my dad would play that album when he was in a really good mood and he'd just gotten Satco for dinner. And it was like, we're going to have a great night.
Satco.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's going to be a good night. No one's getting mad. We're listening to String Cheese, we're eating tacos. So, and then, after processing with EMDR, we end with them going to their safe, calm place and I'll start playing the song. So I had, this was a really cool moment. Someone that I've done EMDR with reached out to me. They were at a concert and they sent me a video of that song playing.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was like, damn, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never that. I have done personally some EMDR. In terms of received it, I've never been trained to use EMDR, but I never had anything that we can do to create that open up those channels.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a ton of research.
Music, sound,
Touch.
cold water.
That's why psychodrama can be so effective from like another part of your brain in terms of physical movement.
Oh, totally.
Which leads me to a different question. Kind of just like, not to just completely bend the conversation, but How do people change?
I don't know. I mean,
Good answer.
There's this saying that people have in recovery of they'll get better when they're ready, or like when they're ready, they'll do this thing. And I did that thing before I was ready. You know, there was the strong arm of the law that suggested I do it or go to jail. So I didn't need to be ready to do it. I got ready in the process. I became bought in and knew it was the right thing for me while I was already in it. So you don't have to be ready to change, you know, and it doesn't have to be in a therapy session or at a treatment center. It's small little things like Phyllis, that woman saying to me, like, why are you here? Just like something changed in that moment where I was like, man, I can't escape that question anymore, you know?
What do you think is, this is not a commercial for Cumberland Heights, but,
But it is.
What's your favorite thing about Cumberland Heights?
When I worked here, it felt like we were a family and we were in this together and we ride at dawn, you know, like, let's go. And that, you know, I was eating sometimes 2 meals here a day, sometimes 3 because I was here all day with school too, with my internship. And so it was like, I felt like I lived here. Sometimes I did if it was snowing out, you know? And so it really did feel like a family.
Yeah.
As a patient, I love history. And the history of this place is cool, and who's been here is cool, and that it was one of the first in Tennessee to exist, one of the only, oh my God, I'm going to butcher it. What's it called? ASAM accredited facilities. I mean, that's a big deal. And so many people have been through here, whether this is where they started or this is where they finally got it. There's a lot of seed planting that happens here. And it's happened in my family. You know, I'm not the only one that's been here at all, you know?
Okay, I asked that question because I knew I was going to ask you this one, which Ryan knew was coming. Based on your experience, if you could change anything about Cumberland Heights, what would it be?
You need more women in charge.
Ooh, quick, good answer.
Yeah.
How do you think we should do that? I mean, how do you do that?
I mean, there's got to be some shifts, you know? It's happening everywhere. Men, you've got one take on how the world should go. Women, we've got another. And, I mean, of course, equality is important, that we both are working on a team together. But if this is an old system, it needs to grow and it needs to change, just like you inspire people to change here, you know? And I know that has happened in many ways
Yeah.
and continues to. I'm not trying to shit on you guys.
No.
As I am one of you, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But
I mean, you're part of our community.
yeah, but you need more women and young women.
Change is a process, not an event.
Yeah.
Truly. You know, but it starts with conversations. Like, you know, that's one of the things about just in general, and this is, you know, but you don't snuff out bad speech with no speech.
Right.
It's actually with more speech.
Right, yeah.
You know? And so it feels good to be at an organization that is having those conversations.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
No matter
plenty are not.
What's that?
Plenty aren't even touching it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, diversity and equity, like, they're not touching
and
it.
so how do we create, you know, a table or a tent or a group that has access for advancements and opportunities just like any other group? And just by nature of asking us those questions, just asking ourselves those questions opens us up to be further curious and opens us up to further take action if we see fit. You know what I mean? And it really happens.
Well, it's a big deal that you would even ask me the question.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That shows that
Right.
you know that you need to grow. Because
Right.
we all do.
Right.
You know?
But it happens one hire at a time.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, and that doesn't mean that, you know, you have to hire all this group for a time. That's not
Right.
what I'm saying. Or all of this other group for a time. It just means that we need to ask ourselves the question and be aware of it,
Yeah.
you know, and make sure that we're considering those facets, which I think most people agree with. So, no, I appreciate you sharing honestly, because I've asked that question to some of our friends, and there's sometimes some hesitation, and like we can cut it, if they feel uncomfortable. But I like that. I like having, just like recovery, let's be real.
Yeah, what's the group conscious have to say about that? Not just the person,
right? Right.
Chairing the meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so last but not least, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We're so grateful that you were going to come and spend some time with us. But, what would you tell young Junie Welsh, for all the young Junie Welshes in the world who are struggling to find their place, or their families are struggling to help them? What would you tell them to do about their mental health?
I mean, there is another way to live. You don't have to be able to see it to understand it. And time is not linear. I fully believe that. I am every version of myself that I've been before and will be right now. And I get to call on, Junie from 5 years down the road on what she thinks I should do right now. And I get to act like her at any point, So if you feel like you can never get better, or that there is no bright future for you and you are still suffering and you are still in pain, there is hope. There is another way to live. It starts one thing at a time. And rock bottoms are portals. The worst space you can be in can rocket you into the fourth dimension of existence. That's how I got here. I got to where I am today because I was incarcerated and went through a lot of emotional pain. Being incarcerated is a symptom of some deep emotional pain, always.
That's like a mic drop moment. That was incredible.
Thank you.
We appreciate you so much. Cumberland Heights loves you so much. We love our community.
Wait, can I shamelessly plug myself for a second?
Of course.
Okay. So I am taking clients.
JunieWelsh.com.
JunieWelshCounseling.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Therapy with Junie. This week, last night was the first night of a cold plunge series I'm doing, which is cold plunging, ice water, right? And then journaling and meditation at our office space at Psychobabble, which is cool.
Are all folks able to join that?
Yeah, so it's closed right now, but I am going to be doing more. Cool. I want to at least do it quarterly.
Cool.
And then the packages I offer for people right out of treatment include, more than once a week with me sessions, plus family sessions, plus on call in case of emergency, unless it's suicide, please call 911. And then me. Continued conversation with all providers that are a part of this. I've worked in tandem a lot with Scott Glazier, which has been really cool.
Scott's awesome.
He's incredible. As a recovery coach and case manager, he's been like an integral part of the packages. And then continued updates throughout, every month. It's like a check-in on what has grown, what can we do next. And the goal is that you're only at that more intensive. It's not a level of care because it doesn't exist, but at least not through insurance's eyes, but you don't stay at that forever. My goal for these clients is that you're once a week, once a month, whatever, family's not involved, and you're doing it for you, and you're not in sober living anymore,
Yeah.
So I know that's a unique thing that is not offered everywhere, but.
Heck yeah, Junie.
Thank you.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I am really pumped for you. I think that your practice is going to do nothing but grow. I'm really grateful that you were here. Check out her journal, Junie Welsh, counseling.com, and on Amazon just by searching your name, Junie Welsh. We're going to tag her website, her socials in this episode when it drops. Be sure to like us, like this video, follow us down below. See, I'm trying,
and
I'm
subscribe.
A millennial.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Swipe up.
See, Christina's not here.
Right.
What are we going to do? No, I'm just kidding. This is really just my way of trying to get Christina to come back and hang out with us because she's not been back.
Hell of a proposal,
She lied is what happened. No,
Oh,
I'm just
my
kidding.
God.
I'm kidding. This is actually what was part of my treatment is I was like the perpetual victim.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Sometimes I bring that back out for fun.
Okay, but do you know what the opposite of a victim is?
What?
A survivor.
What? Dude, do I need to sign up for some therapy? No, it's good.
Yes. I'm just kidding.
I do have a therapist. No.
Oh, good.
But I tell you
Good.
what, I might actually, we'll talk about this next time, intensives.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that's interesting about this show is really trying to unpack, like, what are we even talking about? What is residential treatment? What is individual therapy?
Yeah, we're using a lot of acronyms
Yeah.
that not everyone knows what we're talking
And I
about.
think I want to do like a round table, like with a couple therapists. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
cool.
Have like a big discussion about the nature. Anyways,
Yeah.
maybe you could be a part of that.
I'd love to.
Okay, Junie. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.